The reason that many of you are having affairs and are tempted to have affairs is because you have not sent a strong enough signal to the world, to outsiders, that me and my spouse are one, and you're not going to be able to get up in here. Hey, friends, it's Dana Shea, and you are listening to the Rebuilding Us Marriage podcast. Thank you so much for being here today on this episode. I wanted to parse this out a little bit more on a longer episode to talk about something that I think is really important in marriages, and that's the quality of our friendship. So we're talking today about if you should tell your spouse everything. Should you divulge every detail of your life to your spouse? And if not, why not? So over the next several minutes together, I'm going to give you my opinion, but I'm also going to give you kind of a real world behind the scenes look into my own marriage, some things that have worked for Sean and I over our 25 years together, and also some tips that I have learned from my own clients that I coach and other friends and family members who have healthy marriages. So when we're asking the question, should I tell my spouse everything? The reason that I say that that's a loaded question is because if you are approaching that question with hesitation, that likely means that there is a lack of trust or a lack of safety, or maybe there's some things that you've got going on that you don't really want your spouse to know about, and you want an excuse to leave them on the outside. So we're going to really get real today, you guys. We're going to talk about what our intentions are, what our fears are, and then how you can actually create a marriage that you love, how you can grow in friendship with your spouse. So a couple of things before we start. Number one, I have new hair. If you're watching this on YouTube, which shameless plug, I'm going to start uploading these episodes on YouTube more consistently. I used to be super active on YouTube back in the day, and then I took a break because, content creation takes a long time, if I can just be honest. So if you are watching this on YouTube, hello there. The second thing that I want to tell you is that the look of the podcast is changing. We are really trying to streamline how we put all of this marriage and relationship goodness out in the world. And so everything is now going to be housed under my main website, which is Dana Shea, DANACHE.com. So go to my website, check it out. Hopefully, again, by the time you listen to this podcast, it will be up and ready and beautiful. If not, then just wait a week, and we are working on that very actively right now. Okay, friends, I cannot wait to talk about this. So should you tell your spouse everything? Let me just give you a huge spoiler alert. I believe that you should. I believe that you should tell your spouse everything, but I'm going to tell you some reasons why. First and foremost, we're going to use some kind of big theme words, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to dissect these words. Now, when I say big theme words, I don't mean big vocabulary words that you're unfamiliar with. I mean that these are words that hopefully are guiding your relationship in general, a theme that is guiding your marriage. One of those is oneness. Okay, we're going to talk about what oneness is. We're going to talk about trust and accountability, and then we're going to talk about friendship. Okay, so nothing scary there, right? But I do want to kind of put our conversation in these containers. So first and foremost, when you think about your marriage and when you're thinking about, should I tell my spouse everything or should I kind of hold some stuff in the vault? Should I keep some stuff just for myself? I want to challenge you to ask yourself, what is the goal of your marriage? Is the goal of your marriage to be separate entities? Or is the goal of your marriage to be one? If you are a Christian, and even if you're not, I believe that it's still a good idea for you, if you're not someone who would describe yourself as a follower of Christ, I still believe that oneness is going to be your best bet. If you are a follower of Christ, this is a done deal. Like, this is all throughout Scripture, Old Testament and New Testament, about the goal of marriage is really to be one. Back in the book of Genesis, when God created Adam and Eve, he said to them, be fruitful and multiply, have dominion, rule the earth. He said a man should leave his father and mother and become one with his wife. So oneness showed up in Genesis. Jesus also talks about it in the Gospels. In the book of Matthew, chapter 19, verse 6, he said, so the two are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. Lots of people have that verse recited at their weddings, but very few people know what that actually means. Now, to be one, does that mean that you're like Siamese twins and you have to go everywhere together? You have to go to the bathroom together. You have to do everything together. You have to make every single decision together. No, I don't believe that that's what oneness means. I believe that it's more of a heart posture. It's more of an attitude of my spouse is a part of me and I am a part of my spouse. We are one. So what happens to my spouse happens to me. What happens to me happens to my spouse. So I'm going to tell my spouse everything because they're a part of me. I always laugh when our kids tell us something, especially my older kids, the adult kids, when they say something like, hey, mom, I got to talk to you about something, but you can't say anything. And they go, I mean, of course you can tell dad, because they already know I'm going to tell dad. Like Sean and I tell each other everything, and our kids know this. And I believe that this actually is a good thing for them to see because they see that we're unified. They're not going to be able to pit one of us against the other. So for you parents out there, you being one with your spouse and really modeling that in real time sends a very powerful message to your children. It lets your children, and not only your children, but the world at large, outsiders, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but it lets people know you cannot get in between us. The reason that many of you are having affairs and are tempted to have affairs is because you have not sent a strong enough signal to the world, to outsiders, that me and my spouse are one, and you're not going to be able to get up in here. If a woman wants to approach Sean, now, if you're a woman, don't try it. I'm trying to tell you, do not try it, okay? What did they say? Like, I'm from the kingdom, but the south side of the kingdom? Don't try it. And if you're a man, you're going to fall flat here. Okay. Like, we're not doing the affair thing. Sean and I have both been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and I have a podcast about it. So what I'm trying to say is that when you are one with your spouse, it's noticeable. People see that. And that's a deterrent in and of itself. You have got to be really clear with your boundaries. And do you all know that sometimes we look at boundaries as like, okay, don't do this, don't do that. Like, I'm going to set up something negative, an obstacle. But do you know that the positive is also true of boundaries? You simply displaying oneness is a boundary for other people around your marriage. It's a source of protection. So a few years ago, I was talking to somebody on our staff, and they were telling me, some stuff about the church, right? When you work on a church staff, you obviously talk about church staff stuff. You talk about leadership decisions. You talk about things that maybe you're not all that happy about. You talk about good things too. It's not like, obviously, it's not all bad. And this person meant well. Hear me. They meant well, but this is what they told me. You can't tell your husband everything that happens in the ministry. And I had to stop that person and say, I totally disagree with you. Number one, if I can't tell my husband something, that's going to put a wedge between my husband and I. And I just want to say, if you're a pastor or if you're a leader, if you work in a business and maybe someone has told you that, like, oh, don't go tell your spouse everything. I don't agree with that. I think you tell your spouse everything. I think you bring your spouse in to the real nitty gritty in every area. There's no area of my life that I want to be hidden from Sean. No area. So oneness. I am really serious about this. This is one of the major tenets that I coach on. A lot of people think that they're having communication problems, they're having trust problems, they're having financial problems. The main problem that you're having is oneness. It's oneness. You're still wanting to be separate. The real issue is, have you decided to become one with your spouse? And one of the best ways that you can show that you have is to tell them everything about your life. This includes your past. A lot of times we're afraid to talk about our past because it's, the past is in the past and I don't want my spouse to start having issues, or what if they don't trust me, da, 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 da. I think if you're going to spend the rest of your life with someone, they should know all of you, every part of you, the good, the bad, the ugly. So telling your spouse everything is also going to help you stay accountable. We all love ads. Said no one ever. I know that you do not like ads. I get it. I don't like ads either. So the way that we can work together to minimize the ads on this podcast is by doing two things. Number one, I would love if you would consider supporting the show. The ads help us to support the finances that go into making this free resource, this podcast, available to you. So you can learn more about supporting the show at danashay.com. There's a support tab. Click on it and you can donate to the podcast in that way. All right, let's continue this conversation. We're talking about accountability. So accountability is another reason that I believe you should tell your spouse everything. When you keep your relationship open, then you're showing that you can be held accountable in your marriage. Will and Jada Pinkett Smith, they have been kind of through the ringer with people saying they have an open marriage. And I laugh kind of tongue in cheek and I say, well, I have an open marriage too. Now, by open, I don't mean like we're having other people in our bedroom, which is obviously what most people mean when they say open. But I have an open marriage, meaning that I am open with Sean about everything. I don't hide things from him. If I am having a bad day, I'm going to tell him about it. If I'm having a good day, I'm going to tell him about it. If I'm afraid, I'm going to tell him about it. If I'm insecure about something, I'm going to tell him about it. If I'm angry at him about something, I'm going to tell him about it because I don't like unresolved conflict. We have an open marriage. It helps you to stay accountable when you tell your spouse everything. You meet that new girl at work. If you're a guy, right? And you meet this new girl at work and you might be thinking, that's nothing. She's just a coworker. You better go tell your wife that you met this new girl at work, because if it's nothing, it's nothing. There's nothing for you to be afraid of, right? There's nothing for you to be concerned about if it's just nothing. But see, this is where the seed gets planted. We don't tell our spouse about the new girl at work. And then that becomes, instead of you just saying, hey, every now and again in the break room, now your conversations are getting longer. Now you're going out for lunch. Now you're going out for coffee, which is really dating, FYI. And then you wonder, how in the world did I get in this full-blown affair? Because you didn't let your spouse in the early stages. See, your spouse is not there to watch you like a guard dog, but they are there to help you see your blind spots. There are blind spots that we all have. And your spouse can actually really help you in that area if you allow them to. There are people, men and women, who I might not see as a potential threat, but Sean sees it. And he won't come in and be like, you can't talk to that person anymore. But he'll say, hey, what do you, this is usually how Sean does it. Okay, I'm giving y'all a peek, right? Behind the curtain. This is how Sean usually does it. He'll say, what did you think about so-and-so? And then I'm thinking, because I've gotten accustomed to his questioning. So I'm thinking, what didn't he like about that person? What could I have missed, And then I'm like, and sometimes in that moment, I'll see it. I'll see something. And then sometimes I won't. So I'll be like, I think they were great. Why? Did you see something that I didn't see? Like what? But just that, you all, helps us to stay accountable to one another. It helps us to mitigate those blind spots that we have. And a part of accountability is trust. Sometimes people will put these hand in hand, trust and accountability. When you are open with your spouse about everything, you don't have to worry about your spouse not trusting you. Like if you're going to volunteer information to me that maybe I don't need to know, then I'm going to trust you. Versus if I have to find out on my own. Let the church say amen if you have been in that situation, right? You got to find stuff out on your own. Then it's like, no. I don't trust a word that you say because I had to go digging for that. And then when I approached you about it, you tried to lie about it. So no, I don't trust you. But when you're actually open and when you're actually volunteering information to your spouse, and it doesn't have to be about another person. It could be about finances. So I don't hide purchases from Sean. I remember when we were dating and we had started our premarital counseling with an older couple, the wife literally told me, you guys, I'm 17 years old. I got married at 18, but we're going through the premarital process at 17. And she literally says to me, I have these dresses in the back of my closet that my husband doesn't know about. And I'm 17 years old with no sense, but I knew I wasn't going to do that. I'm not going to be hiding purchases from my husband. Like, what the world? Like, if you can't tell your husband that you bought a dress, what more might you not be telling this man? So I don't do that. If I'm going to buy something, Sean's going to know about it. I don't hide Amazon packages. I don't do those kinds of things. So you have to get to a point where you realize that trust and accountability go hand in hand. And if you are going to develop trust, then you have got to volunteer some information. That's a whole word for somebody right there. Some of you have been waiting. Well, if my spouse asks me, then I'll tell them. Don't let them have to ask. Volunteer the information. For those of you who are literally asking, how do I get the trust back with my spouse? There's your answer. Tell them stuff that they might not ask you, stuff that you might not think they, quote, need to know. Your spouse is more than a need to know basis person. They need to know everything about you because that's what you signed up for when you sit at the altar and you entered a covenant with them. So there should be no secrets in your marriage. None. No secrets. There's nothing that should be off limits. Okay? So we've got oneness, we've got trust and accountability. And then finally, friends, friendship. Like, do you want to be friends with your spouse? The person that you wake up to and go to bed every night with, the person that you live with, the person that you maybe share a bank account with. Don't you want to be friends with that person? Or do you just want that person to be a roommate? Do you just want that person to be somebody who you split the household responsibilities with 50-50? Because I don't want to live like that. Like, life is too short to live like that. I want to be friends with Sean. I want to laugh with him. I want to be silly with him. I want to go on vacations with him. I want to relax with him. I want to talk to him about my day. I want to talk to him about my goals in life. I want to dream with him. Like, I want to be friends with him. And I hope that you want that too, because that is what makes marriage fun. That's what makes the, quote, work that we have to do in marriage. That's what makes it worthwhile. When we realize that we're not just working on our marriage to work on our marriage, but we're actually working on our marriage to become better friends, to become better connected with our spouse. There's a verse in Song of Psalms. I'm going to read it to you. Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, whichever one you say. Sometimes I go back and forth between the two, but they're the same book. So in Song of Solomon 5, verse 16, it says, his mouth is sweetness itself. He is desirable in every way. Let's just pause right there. I wonder what would happen if you told your husband, or husbands, if you told your wife, your mouth is sweet in and of itself. You are desirable in every way. Like, who talks to their spouse that way? I love it. So then this woman continues, and this is the woman talking in this verse. She says, this is my lover. This is my friend. This is my lover. This is my friend. They've made like that into like a painting that you can put on your wall above your bed, which I think you should. If you could find it on Amazon or Etsy or wherever, you should put that over your bed because it's a great reminder that you are not only my lover, you are not only my spouse, you are not only my partner, you are not only my baby daddy or my baby mama, but you are my friend. You are someone who I enjoy being with. You are someone who I cherish in that way. And a big part of being friends is telling your friends about your life, telling your friends about your day, telling your friends about your vision, telling your friends about your hopes and your dreams and all of the things. Your closest friends. I'm not talking about the acquaintance at work. I'm talking about your closest friends. Shouldn't your spouse be at the very top of that list? I certainly think they should. Now, here's the rub. The people that are most close to you also have the greatest potential to hurt you. And because that has happened in many of our marriages, we keep our spouses at arm's length. But what I'm trying to encourage you today is to bring your spouse in close. Connect with your spouse in a new way, on a new level. And if you all have messed up here, if you have treated each other as frenemies or worse, enemies, if you have been standoffish, if you've had a shallow relationship, then today is a great day to begin again. How do you begin again? Well, one, you've got to want to begin again. Two, you've got to commit to doing what it takes. You got yourself in this situation, so you can get yourself out. That's something that I tell all of my coaching clients. You have the power to create a great relationship. Good relationships are not something that just happen to you or happen by chance to a certain few lucky people. No, you will get the relationship that you work to have. So if you want to be friends with your spouse, how do you build a friendship? Do the same things with your spouse. Now, because you've got some history, and if that history is bad history, then there's going to obviously be some forgiveness. There's going to obviously be a need to have some repentance going on, a rebuilding of trust happening. All of those things can happen, though, simultaneously while you're rebuilding your friendship. I am a living witness, you all. Sean and I have been married for 25 years. We have not always been close friends. There have been times where I have been like, and I'm doing like a little cross for those of you who are not watching this on YouTube, but like, get away from me, stay away from me, danger, danger, right? Because he was not a safe person. And there are probably times I wasn't safe for him. And I'm telling you that being friends with your spouse is so much sweeter. Being able to tell Sean everything. Again, I'll talk about my kids because they know. Like, when one of us finds out something about our kids, we're going to tell the other person. If Sean finds out something about one of the kids, he's going to tell me. It's going to happen. He's not going to be like, well, I'm not going to tell your mom. No, we don't do that. Good or bad. And when our kids tell us stuff, we tell each other. And they just already know that. We are one. And that is my desire for you all today. It's not that you just do the work and you've got great relationship tips and skills, but that you become one with your spouse. And this is a great way to start. You're going to be tempted this week to withhold information for a few reasons. One, you're going to think it's not a big deal. Two, you might prejudge your spouse's response. Are they going to get mad? Are they going to get annoyed? Are they going to be insecure? Just resist that. Your spouse is a grown person. They're responsible for their own emotions. But be more open. Be more honest. Be more accountable. Focus on building a friendship and watch your marriage change. It's going to be the best thing that you've ever done. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I pray that it was encouraging for you. So thank you again for being here today. You can find the show notes to this podcast at rebuildinguspodcast.com. We will see you on the next episode. Take care.